Well, hello and welcome back to the very latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, today I am joined by my favourite guest, the only guest I've ever had back on the fourth occasion, the lovely Jade Birkin. Now, Jade, if you don't know, is a dating coach, a dating blogger, a dating writer, a dating events organiser, a dating everything, and also the best storyteller when it comes to dating that I've ever spoken to. So today, Jade, how are you doing?
Hi, James. What an introduction. Thanks so much for having me back on.
You're welcome. I really wanted to get you back on because so much has happened, and some of my listeners do enjoy your stories and your dating life, the way things have been going on. You've had some ups and you've had some downs. You've lived with people, bubbled up, you have been ghosted, you've been dating narcissists, you have fallen in love, you've had your heart broken, you've broken hearts. So much has happened. So what's happened since we last spoke?
So we last spoke about a year ago, actually. And I had been talking about, and I had been telling you that there had been this guy that had sort of dated straight after the pandemic, like the first lockdown. Mm-hmm. And then we bubbled up, but we didn't live together, but that was allowed in Scotland. And then I just ended it. And I'd said to you at the time on the podcast, I just felt like I felt like I was being quite needy. I just wasn't getting what I needed, and I just genuinely at the time didn't know if it was because it was lockdown or because him and I didn't work. So a couple of months kind of went by, summer starting, lockdown's easing, we're chatting, and we decided to have a catch up, and then we actually realised that we still like each other. So we end up seeing each other exclusively again. So that happened for a couple of months. We had some of the most amazing dates. I've never actually dated a guy that's so creative before, like he made me candles.
He made you candles?
Yeah. We went to crazy cocktail bars and just really, it was just perfect after lockdown. But I still had that niggling feeling like I was just reaching and I just wanted that little bit more. And then...
In what sense? More of a spark, more of chemistry, more conversation... More what?
Yeah, more. So when we were together, conversation was great. The chemistry and the spark was insane. And then he would leave and he would be quite quiet. And like I said before, I didn't need someone to message me all the time, but it just felt like I didn't know when I was going to see him next. And it was just quite quiet. And it wasn't that he was doing anything. I think I've just had a power cut.
I saw that your lights just flickered for those that can't see that.
No, some things are still on. Oh, maybe my bulb just went. Okay.
Maybe you just got a haunted room. Maybe that's what it is.
Oh, well, good thing I'm leaving this flat. Sorry. I'm usually ghosted in other ways, but
I was thinking that actually, but I didn't want to say it. But...
I know, it's always crazy. I did actually write an article last year about being haunted in lockdown by an ex, so strange. Anyway, so there was just something not right. And I was going through a bit of a stressful situation, which I won't go into, but I needed him to be there for me a little bit. Not that I needed him to fix anything or do anything. I just sort of needed a little more emotional support. And I got to the point I was really upset that he wasn't kind of giving me that. And then that upset turned into anger and I was furious with him. And I decided to do a bit of Instagram stalking, which isn't really like me. And it turned out he was just liking and commenting on several different females' pictures and
how do you know that? Because Instagram doesn't show that anymore, someone's activity. How do you know?
So what I saw was there was the same females that liked a lot of his posts. And they would always comment like little love hearts or little like fire emojis. And there was a couple of times when he maybe tagged me in his stories that these women would try and follow me. And I was like, who is this? And he'd be like, oh, just some weirdo. And I was like, all right. And I'm not a jealous person. So, he was with me. I didn't. And then I went on, some of these profiles weren't private. And I went on to what I used to call his fans. And he had liked all of their pictures. And there was a couple in particular that were really quite crude, to be honest, and he was commenting little love hearts, and I was like, I've never had a love heart, and I've been with him for 11 months. So I just was like, we're not, there's a disconnect. And I didn't even pull him up about it because I was like, there's no point. It's just not working.
Okay, so how did you end it this time round?
So I was a text message because that is all the respect he deserved, because I was going through turmoil at the time and I hadn't heard from him in 4 days. And I just went, I mentioned, I was like, it's the same as before. Like, this just isn't working. And he went, sorry, I keep doing this. So he seemed to be aware that he was doing it.
Let's talk a bit more actually about the whole Instagram situation, because I think many men do that, and women. They go and comment on people's pictures. That's almost what it's for some degree. The reason I say this is that I am aware that I get likes and comments. I got my own fans, should we say, who the same people were commenting, people I've never even spoken to, and I really, really appreciate that, which is lovely. But sometimes I do get sent inappropriate messages, and I get sent things, and I could never respond to them being a married man, of course. Although I do quite enjoy it. It's a bit flattering at the same time. But on the other hand, I think it's sometimes, is it really cheating if someone likes or puts a heart comment on someone's picture? Because that's what they want. They want approval, don't they? That's what they're doing it for.
Yeah, I mean, I am, like I said, I am not insecure. And yeah, we like Instagrams, and there might be someone, a guy I worked with 10 years ago, and he might put a picture of him. I'm like, oh, he looks like a babe and like it, like things that, but there's not. But what it was in this particular situation for me was they commented on every single one of each other's pictures, calling each other like love hearts and handsome. And that made me think, what is going on privately? Like, it was almost like there was a connection there, and it was consistent connection. Yeah. Whereas the odd comment, especially if you've maybe got, in terms of like a business page like we do, that's fine. Ignore inappropriate messages. But yeah, Instagram is toxic. And talking to one of my friends, he was dating someone, he's my age, he's in his 30s. He was dating someone about 10 years younger than him last year. And she was always going on his Instagram asking, who's this girl, and he was like, it's toxic, it's too much. Like, I'm in my 30s, I know a lot of people like.
Yeah, people use it, they get very, very jealous and paranoid. When Instagram was popular a few years ago, there was a feature where you could see someone's activity. And I was getting used to it, didn't know what to do. And someone told me, a friend of mine said to me, are you aware that everyone can see what you're doing, what you're commenting, and the things that you're liking? Why are you liking all these girls' pictures? Now, I wasn't liking them in that way. I was liking them because I wanted to build up an audience initially. But thank goodness they removed that feature, because I think it can cause a lot of problems. My wife used to tell me a long time ago, why are you liking that person's thing on Facebook, for example, on that post? So I'm very much aware that it can be misconstrued. And they were just friends of mine or people in the same industry who want to support each other. But I think that there's a whole micro-cheating system here. That is micro-cheating really bad? Is it just normal? Should it be accepted? But in your situation, I completely understand. The bigger picture here, you added 2 and 2 up. You didn't get 5, you got 4. I think you pretty much thought, hang on a minute, maybe they're dating each other in real life, or they've got a connection, and I'm stepping away from this, which is the right thing to do. He should have been giving you the love hearts, shouldn't he?
Yeah, it didn't feel like even that I don't believe he was seeing somebody else. It was just it was an attention thing a little bit. It felt disrespectful. Like, this was these were really crude photographs that he was putting love hearts on. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you should be paying to message her, but she clearly fancied him, so it was fine. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back that made me realise it really was, we weren't in the same place. It just was a bit too distant.
But what made you give him a second chance?
Because I thought it had been lockdown. I thought, because I had always wondered, was it lockdown? Was it because of, January blues and everything that was going on with the pandemic? Was that just taking over my rational thinking? Will it be easier? And like, when we can go about, and I was like, once I can see my friends again and things, I won't be as needy as I felt like I was being. But
no, people often do like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But really, if there were cracks there, the cracks aren't going to get any better or any worse. They're just going to still be just cracks. And it sounds to me like many people, when he was with you, he was perfect. I'm fascinated by these candles, and maybe he cooked for you, did all these nice things and nice gestures. I think men have a very good way sometimes of living in the moment and being present and making someone feel special, then they go away and think, do you know what? I've talked a good game here, and I've bit off more than I can chew. I don't really want to commit to anybody. Is that what you think happened here?
I'm not really sure if it was. I think he just probably felt that he knew that I wasn't exactly what he wanted, but there was enough there because we did have such great chemistry and we were both about geeky and like kind of niche things that I don't know. There was definitely something there that I think we both wanted to explore, but I think it got to the point that both of us knew long term. You know, he lived in a little village a little bit further from me where I would never live, but he had no intention of leaving there. Just little things like that. It wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's fair enough. You gave it a shot and it didn't work out. So you like geeky men, is that right?
Well, I like intelligent. I would say geeky. It depends. It just, you know, I've got like lots of different likes and interests, and obviously nobody's going to match every single one. But if there's something in common, then that's a great thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think many people do. Everyone's got an element of geek in them to some degree. I think I do. Everyone does. And many of my clients, I could say, they embrace that side of them. And nothing wrong with that. I think geek is a terrible word, but what it really means is someone that's got diverse interests and who's curious about different things. That's all it is. And I know there's a really good dating app out there. I think it's Geeks Dating or something. My friend runs it. I should know what it's called really. Geeks Meets Dates or something like that. I will find out what it's called. I've forgotten now. It's gone out of my mind. So I think when I ask you the next question, I'm going to Google it and look it up just to
Okay.
She'd be very, very cross with me if I get the name wrong for it. But someone approached me a long, long time ago about setting up an app and a dating site for geeks dating. I think that is an absolute niche, but no one wants to say that they're geeks. But I would say that I'm eccentric to some degree. And eccentric, it sounds really cool, doesn't it? Geek sounds more derogatory. I think you have to be somewhat eccentric to do what we do for a living, which is fun. Yeah. You have to have that side of you. But the only reason I really asked you that question is because I have some clients. I was trying to think if I can match anyone up. I'm thinking, but then no one's really near you, unfortunately. I've got a lovely lady who's in Glasgow, but not quite right for you, based on many reasons. So, okay, so what happened? While I Google this, can you tell me what happened next? Your next dating story? Are you dating anyone now?
No, but there's two other stories following this gentleman that ended 6 months. So that was about 6-7 months ago that ended. Sorry, my throat's a wee bit not COVID. Obviously, I have to just say that. Not that even I'm home and this is virtual. Yeah. So then I wasn't on any dating apps or anything like that. Just getting about my life, quite happy. And one of my friends had been on a podcast with this guy down in England. And we had followed each other. And at the weekend, he'd put something on his story. Well, he'd actually done, he put me up for Follow Friday. And I was like, oh, that was nice and random. I don't know this person. And then he'd put a story up and it was kind of a rant about, was it when that petrol issue was going on in the UK? No one could get petrol. Yeah. And I laughed and I was like, well, he's quite handsome. But I never really thought, because he lives in England and whatever. But then that day we ended up, I was going back to Instagram, we ended up voice noting each other on Instagram all day. And then later on that evening, he's like, would it be weird if I asked for your number? And I was like, yeah, that's okay. So we spoke all week. We ended up on the phone. We ended up on FaceTime. We got on amazing. And he was like, I'm going to drive to Scotland and see you. And I was like, that's insane. And he's like, it's not. He was like, I don't mind. He's like, I've done the drive to Scotland several times for work, whatever. So I just thought, oh, okay. So I planned everything for the day. I was really excited. I definitely had like my rom-com head on because of how well we'd be getting on the phone. Yeah. Then he arrived. He left his at 5 a.m. to drive up to Scotland. Rang my buzzer, opened the door, and well, first of all, he lied about his height, but you know, we'll not rule that wasn't an issue. But he did lie about his height. So the plan was that he would come to mine, drop his car keys off, and then we were just going to head into the city centre.
Can I just stop you there?
Why
are you allowing some strange man you never met to come to where you live?
Well, our friends in common knows him. we do have a friend in common. So
Right.
he wasn't going to be staying with me or anything. It was very much he's up for the day.
Even
Um,
so, that's not a good idea, is it really? Let's be honest.
no, usually, because I'm usually like go off my head, but I felt like I really knew him and I really trust my friends in common. And she was like, he's so nice. And she's been with him in person and known him for quite a while. And he had what I thought was being really honest in phone calls and told me about his previous relationships and his dating life. And yes, so it just, at first, it was a bit like he was barely looking at me. And I was like, oh, maybe he's nervous. Um, I looked quite nice if I do say so myself. I ordered a taxi. We went to a place for just kind of like light bites, and he was sitting across the table, and he just was barely looking at me. And I was like, oh, I think he might be nervous, but whatever. And then I had booked a crazy golf activity for us, so we went. And then suddenly his persona changed, and he was like, I am brilliant at crazy golf. I always win. And then he was like showing me photographs of when he'd been to one down in England, and he was like, "Oh, she's blocked me. I don't speak to her anymore." But so that like this little kind of alarm bell in my head. And then when we were at the golf, he was very competitive, right? Which doesn't really bother me. I was like, don't even know why about crazy golf. I've not played this in 20 years.
It's a good date idea. I recommend it a lot.
Yeah, it's a good one, and it's sort of like a hip hop one, and it's like it's all street art, and it's really funny. And we were going round, and he just wasn't looking at me. And whenever we were queuing, it was quite busy. He was like turning his back to me, and he's on the phone. And then he said that maybe our mutual friend could join us for dinner. And then at that point, I realised he has not actually, the only thing he's talked about is her. And failing, but then I was like, but she is who we have in common. And I was like, no, because
do I know this person, the other person?
What, with the friends in common, or
yes,
know him?
Friends in common.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Hence our conversation just before we started this podcast. Okay, right. Okay, keep going, sorry.
No, it's fine. And I was like, no, she's away out with her boyfriend. And he was like, then I realised he'd been like texting her. And I was like, are you texting her? And he was like, yeah, like, and then he'd been like taking photos of me when I wasn't looking and sending it to her. And anyway, and then so we finished the golf, and I was actually winning at one point, and he was raging. Anyway, so then we were walking across the park to go for dinner, and he just did not. I realised at that point I felt drained. And at the end of the golf, I felt like I wanted to cry. And I was like, I wish his keys weren't at mine, because my gay best friend lived round the corner, and he had said to me before, if you need me to come and cry and pretend my relationship's over, I'll do it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, my God. And then, so not only did he just constantly talk about my friends in common, he kept making digs about Scotland. So he kept kind of, whenever I would say things, he would try and repeat it, which is my least favourite thing, is when an Englishman tries to repeat my accent, because then they quote Shrek. And he was like, get out of my
Donkey!
Swamp. It's like, get out of my swamp. And I was like, that's very original patter right there. And he, comparing me to my friend, like my friend, she's a voiceover artist. She's got a lovely, like, the way she speaks. And he's like, you don't sound like her. And I'm like, no, I'm a bit more Glaswegian than her. That's correct. And he's like, yeah, like Shrek. And I was like, I'm like Shrek compared to her. Yep, that's correct. Yep, that's fine. And I was like, I'm actually going to a Shrek-themed Halloween party this year. And he went, oh, I bet you're going as one of the princesses. No, the dragon. So yeah.
Ooh.
Okay. Like we went for dinner. Conversation was, I felt that I was so drained. Got back to mine, picked his keys up, gave him a hug, was like, bye. And I had my natural curly hair that day. So funny, going back to talking about geeks, I was so tired, put my jammies on, took my contacts out, put my specs on, and I looked in the mirror and I just burst out crying, because there was the curly-haired girl with glasses that none of the boys fancied at school, that got so picked on. And after him talking about, my friend who's beautiful all day, I just was like, you know what it did? It kind of was like, so it was FaceTiming my best friend and had some wine. Went to bed, woke up in the morning. I had a really busy day. I had a dress fitting for my best friend's wedding, and then I had family up from England, which I told him. So he just had wrote, morning, hope you have a good day. And I was like, well, actually, sorry, going back to the night, when I was sitting in my glasses, having a glass of, in my jammies, having a glass of wine, he phoned me, and there was a lot of roadworks and stuff going on in Glasgow. And I thought, oh, I better answer just in case he's lost or something. And he was just blabbering away, and he was back to being this really charismatic, funny storyteller that he'd been on the phone. And I'm like, just sitting holding my phone with him on loudspeaker, thinking, where was this guy all my day? Like, this is a different. And I was like, listen, my phone's about to die. I'll charge it. I'll phone you back. Obviously, I didn't. The next day, he messaged. He's like, hey, hope you have a good day. And I was like, thanks, you too. And he's like, listen, you're really attractive, but there was no spark, and I didn't want to ruin anything. And I was like, ruin what? And he was like, the chance of being and it just totally, I realised, I was like, all he does is either talk about my friend in common, slag off either my accent or people in Scotland. Like, he would point at signs and streets being like, what even is that word? And things like that. And then he talked a lot about being famous, and he kept asking about, the times I've done BBC Radio. He asked about you quite a lot, actually.
Really?
Yeah, he was
How do you
like,
know about me?
Because, he's in the dating industry a little bit. So, he's trying to be in the dating industry. He just wants to be famous. Like, then I was remembering some of the things he said. Like, he was talking about how he loved his tattoo so much, and when he dies, he wants his skin to be removed and framed. And I was like, oh, you are a narcissist. Like, imagine, like, there was so many comments. And then I realised that on several stories that he had told, because it hadn't been all at once, it was spread over kind of 2 weeks. I was like, there's actually a lot of stories about women doing him wrong and how he dates narcissists and how these women keep blocking him on social media. And I was like, what is the common denominator there? Him. He is the common denominator. So
he needs some dating coaching, doesn't he?
He needs a slap across the face.
He needs that as well. He needs to go on Geek Meet UK. That's what he needs to do. That's honestly. Geek Meet UK.
Geek Meet UK.
I got that one in there. Yes.
No, it's just insane. And he was like, listen, like, I know what you do. Don't talk about me. And I was like, I don't care enough to talk about you. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, listen, your obsession with my friends is insane. And he's like, right, you're just being rude now. I've never been rude. And I was like, you compare me to Shrek. You were rude. But I just blocked him at that point. I didn't even respond. I was like,
yeah, get rid of him. I don't know what to say. He obviously listens to these podcasts or knows who I am, which is bizarre. Really? But not really. Not really. If anyone knows something about dating coaching, just Google it, you'll find me. It's not difficult to do.
But I think because he's obviously been on my Instagram and I share a lot of what you do, and obviously I've been on your podcast before, so he will have seen you that way as well, and he knows.
That's fine. He's not going to start treating me in the same way, is he? So it doesn't matter.
No,
I think maybe he just needs some advice, and he might have been shy and doesn't know what he wants. That's it. I'm not justifying his behaviour in any way. He sounds like a complete. I'm not going to swear on my podcast. Well, keep it clean today. But he sounds like he needs some help with that. And if you're listening, if you want to reach out to them, I'm not really. I'm not Frasier. Dr. Fraser Crane.
I love that show.
I know he's coming back. Hopefully soon.
I know.
Anyway, so talking about podcasts, you've got your own podcast now as well, haven't you?
I do, yes.
So I'm going to let you plug that now, because I came on your podcast, which is great. So tell me about your podcast. What's it all about, and what sort of guests have you had on there?
So my podcast is called All About Dating, where I speak to dating experts, like yourself, our mutual connection who's been on your podcast, Dr. Mary McLeod. Mm-hmm. And I also speak to people who have inspirational stories about being single or finding love. So for instance, that's us had 7 episodes out now. So I've had like yourself on, all about dating coach. We've had all about the science of finding love with Mary McLeod. Mm-hmm. There's a connection I have in Glasgow. She's a very successful business owner, and she actually went on a blind date, and she had no interest in dating. She was booked to go traveling, and she met this guy, and they fell in love. But she still went traveling, and they made it work. And then they came back, and now they're married and have a daughter. So it was really, really inspirational, like about how she just knew. We like to kind of mix it up that way.
Yeah, well, I think your podcast is great, and the way you promote it is really good, and you like the graphics and everything else. So I know you'll be doing lots more of that as you have more stories to tell. But I know it's about the guest on there, isn't it? It's about this. I don't really tell many stories about myself. Well, I do tell lots of stories about myself, but generally I haven't been single for 15 years now, which is weird. Well, it's weird. It's a long time, isn't it? I'm getting older now, but I don't.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've kind of created this, I'm a professional single. So what we do is, I don't want the podcast to be about me. I do want it to be about my guests, and I need a variety of different people, different stories. I've had a psychic on because some people will really relate to that. I want to just reach as many people, and I've already had, after 6 episodes, so many people say it was really inspirational and what they took from it, from the experts. But me and my co-host, who's actually the friend in common, I know this guy, but we are still very close, and she was furious about it all. Anyway, we do have a little bit of a chat, and she's actually in a relationship. So it's funny that we have all about dating, and she's in the relationship, and I'm single. And I guess my next story is I was with someone and it didn't work out. And yesterday, recording the podcast, I did speak a little bit about it because I've spoken about it on my Instagram, and so many women had messaged to say, I really relate to this. Thank you for sharing. And that's something that I've done for 8 years, is shared. And I have got more vulnerable with sharing my experiences over the last couple of years. And, having people reach out to me and thank me for sharing my experience and saying it made me realize it's not just me and this happens to other people. So on my podcast, it is really about the guests, and it's really about everybody that's listening, whether they're single or even those in a relationship, because if we speak to people who are in a relationship, we ask them for relationship advice. But yeah, we do want our listeners to know me and my co-host Jane, and we do talk a little bit about what we've been up to. So then slowly but surely she's been like, I had my first weekend away with the boyfriend this year, so that's what. And then we had actually recorded a few, and then we were having a Christmas break and we were both going on holidays. And I had kind of hinted in the last recording, like, listen, I am seeing someone. I'll talk about that in the next podcast. And that next podcast recording was yesterday. And I was like, okay, so basically I've just had my heart broken, and I had to talk about that. And even because we actually record at a studio, because I've got no technical skills, so I just pay someone to do it all. And even at the end of the recording, he was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that happened to you. I am so sorry. And he did swear, but the recording was off by that point.
This is the thing. You have these strange and wonderful stories that happen to you, and you share new ones with me each time. This is why I keep getting you back, because you can talk and you have these weird experiences. But the thing is, not just you that goes through this. It's so many women. You said women can relate to this. This is why it's important to have these sort of podcasts, because people think they're on their own and they're scared, don't know what to do. They get absolutely frustrated. But really, people, no, I'm not saying you, but people that you're dating are just clueless and don't know what they're doing, and they're scrambling around trying to find people and messing people around, which is pretty awful. Funnily enough, I did a podcast recording yesterday with somebody in America who's bringing out this new app, and on the app you can review people after you've been on a date. So if they ghost you or they treat you really badly, you can review them. It's about positivity, really. I thought that's a great idea, because people that are going to get bad reviews aren't going to use it. They're not going to bother. So that's what we need. We need more girls looking out for each other and boys looking out for each other, just being nicer and being more respectful in general in life. That's what I think. So, Jade, what's next? Are you going to date again?
Yeah, I will. I'm still. So the breakup happened just before Christmas, so it was really hard. And then during that time, so many amazing things have happened in my life, because that was kind of just as the podcast was coming out, and we've had such great feedback. I found a new home that I'm going to move to, not too far away, but a little bit bigger. I've been promoted to senior journalist for one of the magazines I write for. So I've just been to Spain with my mom, and I'm so excited. I've just booked Ibiza with the girls, and I've just got so much happening, and I'm really excited. And actually, after the last situation with the guy who broke up with me just before Christmas, one of my straight guy friends, like, we're really close, and he messaged me straight away, and he was like, it's another chapter for the book, babe. And I was like, I'm like, my mom was like, why did the universe send you him? And I was like, because I needed to really have my heart broken again, because I really need to write this book that everybody wants me to write. And then this friend who'd said it to me, he's like, right, it's just another chapter for the book, babe, and then that book will be a Netflix series. And I was like, oh, who will play you in my Netflix series? So this is a game that me and all my friends have been playing since my breakup, is who's going to play who in the Netflix. So I'd asked my friends, I was like, oh, he was like, who's going to play you? And I was like, I don't know, who do you think? And he was like, Jennifer Lawrence, she's sassy. And I was like, I will take that compliment.
Why can't you play you?
Well, I know.
That's
maybe
the best way. That's the best way.
I mean, let's face it, if we get Jennifer Lawrence, we might get more viewers, but that's a game. So who is going to play you? Because obviously you would be mentioned in my book.
Who's going to play me? Who's going to play me? Who would I like to play me? I tell you who I'd like to play me. He's a little bit older than me, but I like him. What's his name? Jason Bateman. Do you know who that is?
Oh, yeah. I love Jason Bateman.
Of Ozark. He's a great actor. I think he could do it really well. I followed him since he was a kid in shows, and I'm a big fan. I was watching that yesterday thinking, yeah, I like him as an actor. Great. I think he could do it. He'd have to get a British accent, of course.
That's all right. I know we're mixing up the accents a little bit. I don't know if Jennifer Lawrence could do a Scottish one. That's the hardest one, isn't it? But we'll see. It's okay.
I'm sure she could. Excellent. Well, thank you, Jade, so much again. I'm sure we'll come back on here again in 6 months' time and do the updates. And I want to hear a happy story next time. I want to hear that you've met somebody and things are going well, because it's lovely to have these stories, but I want you to meet someone. That's all we want.
Oh, thank you.
All we ever want. So, great. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in a good place, and I'm still completely optimistic, and everything is a lesson, isn't it? And yeah, it's one of those things I was saying yesterday as well. Like when that Jen who broke up with me, like we were in a relationship. This was after I dated that narcissist, and he just suddenly ended things with me. But there was a part of me, and I was like, I'm so embarrassed. You know, I'm in my 30s. I'm a dating expert, and this happened to me. But now that I've sort of got through it all and had a good chat with myself, I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're 22 or if you're 50. We're only human, and the best you can do is give people a chance and be open to love. And if it doesn't work out, that's actually one of those things. And it's maybe it, like you'd kind of touched on before, it's the other person perhaps not really sure what they were doing.
It is. If it helps, a long time ago, I was going to write a book called Confessions of a Dating Guru, which is about me. If I was so good at being a dating coach, why was I still single? And I went on hundreds of dates. I thought I'm going to date 100 new women now for my book and write about them for this new book. And I lined some up. And then before you knew it, I met my wife and my dating days were over. So the book went on to become Dating Guru's Funny Dating Stories. It's quite a short book. And also my I Will Make You Click book, which is my main book on Amazon. So
yes, of course.
There is hope. If I can do this, and I've been in the same situation as you, around your age, and I know that it can happen because it happened for me, and it happens to people that I work with every single day. So thank you, Jade. Just to remind people, if they want to find you, how do they find you?
So my website is www.jadeddating.com. I'm very active on Instagram, so that's jaded.dating on Instagram.
Fantastic.
And the podcast is all about dating, which is available on Spotify and Apple. So episode 3 is with yourself, James.
Yes. Check out episode 3 and then check out the other episodes after that. But start with my one, because I think you'll enjoy it. And it's a good one. It's a fun one. So thank you, Jade. Thanks again. Have a great rest of the day and a great few months. And I'm sure we'll speak again very soon. Bye for now.
Yeah, speak soon. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.